Have you ever noticed how some women seem to discourage, manipulate, or undermine other women in relationships, dating, or even just social dynamics? And yet, most men never notice it because it's subtle, invisible, and psychological. Here's the harsh truth. This behavior isn't random. It's deeply rooted in social conditioning, evolutionary psychology, and subconscious competition. Women often shape the dating landscape in ways that keep other women single, jealous, or insecure, while men remain unaware of the forces at play. What most men don't understand is that female social dynamics are highly influential. Women scan the social environment, pick up on cues, and reinforce behaviors through subtle judgments, gossip, and validation patterns. A woman's opinion, spoken or unspoken, can determine how others perceive her in dating circles. This isn't about malice in most cases, it's instinctive social calibration. Women enforce standards subconsciously. Who is worth attention? Who is available? Who fits our perception of value? And the result is often that certain women are subtly isolated or discouraged, which in turn influences men's perception without them even realizing it. Another layer of this psychology is competitive social energy. Women are trained, socially and evolutionarily, to observe, compare, and influence one another. When one woman elevates her status in subtle ways, through attention, fashion, confidence, or social proof, others are often internally discouraged, consciously or subconsciously, from engaging with men in ways that might upstage her. The subtle messaging can include judgmental comments, indirect disapproval, or social exclusion. Men are usually unaware, but they sense tension, drama, or social hierarchies that affect dating dynamics. This behavior also reinforces subconscious scarcity in dating. Women, even unintentionally, communicate value hierarchies to each other. Certain men feel attracted to women not only because of their own energy, but because of perceived social validation or rejection cues from other women. If a woman is being subtly shunned by her peers, it impacts her confidence, approachability, and behavior, which in turn affects how men perceive her. Attraction becomes indirectly influenced by female social policing long before a man consciously engages. By the end of this video, you'll understand the invisible ways women influence each other's romantic opportunities, the psychological triggers behind these behaviors, and how to navigate the subtle social networks that shape dating dynamics. This isn't gossip, it's science. Understanding it gives you insight into female psychology that most men never notice, allowing you to operate above the invisible currents that dictate attention, desire, and opportunity. One of the most powerful ways women influence each other's dating outcomes is through subtle social signaling. It's rarely overt. Instead, it operates on a subconscious level. Women constantly scan each other for cues about confidence, attractiveness, and social worth. When one woman perceives another as a competitor, she may unconsciously limit her exposure, provide indirect criticism, or influence social circles to minimize her visibility. For men, this creates a ripple effect. They may never consciously notice why certain women seem harder to approach or why their confidence appears diminished. The unseen social pressure affects not only women's behavior but also how men perceive and interact with them. Another mechanism is peer comparison and judgment. Women naturally compare themselves and others against cultural and social benchmarks. If one woman is deemed too attractive, too assertive, or too independent, subtle social cues from other women, like critical commentary, micro-expressions, or indirect exclusion, can lower her perceived dating value within the group. Men interpret these signals unconsciously. They notice tension, social hierarchy, or hesitancy, which affects attraction. Even if a man isn't directly part of the social feedback loop, he picks up on the energy, often without understanding why. Then there's the reinforcement of insecurities. Women often unintentionally keep peers single by amplifying self-doubt. Comments about appearance, behavior, or dating choices, even when framed as advice, trigger internalized judgment and hesitation. Confidence drops, subtle behavioral cues change, and attraction energy diminishes. For men, this is critical to recognize. A woman's energy, confidence, and approachability are deeply influenced by her peer environment, often long before you interact with her. Understanding the invisible social forces at play gives you clarity on why some women seem less confident or hesitant despite being fully capable of attracting attention. Finally, subconscious validation policing plays a role. Women monitor the attention each other receives from men, sometimes subtly reinforcing scarcity or gatekeeping interest. This doesn't always come from malice. It's often instinctive, but the result is consistent. Women who might otherwise pursue connections confidently are nudged toward caution or restraint. Men, unaware of these dynamics, may misinterpret hesitation as lack of interest or low value, when in fact it's social influence shaping behavior. Recognizing these mechanisms, social signaling, peer comparison, reinforcement of insecurities, and validation policing, gives you an advantage. You begin to see the invisible currents affecting women's behavior, giving insight into how social psychology impacts dating. Here's a reality most men don't see. Female social dynamics are shaping your dating experiences long before you even approach a woman. Every subtle signal, judgment, or validation cue between women creates ripples that influence how men perceive her. When women subtly police confidence, reinforce insecurities, or control social perception, men unconsciously pick up on it. A woman may seem hesitant, distant, or hard to get, not because she isn't interested, but because her energy has been shaped by the invisible pressures of her social network. One key influence is perceived social approval. Men are wired to notice confidence, independence, and ease. If a woman is consistently receiving indirect signals that she's being judged or compared, her energy changes. Subtle hesitations, tone shifts, or guarded behavior can make her appear less approachable or less confident, even if her intrinsic value is high. As a result, men may misinterpret signals and disengage, thinking she's uninterested or unattainable. Understanding this helps you separate a woman's behavior from the underlying social forces shaping it. Another impact is artificial scarcity. When women unintentionally gatekeep each other's romantic opportunities through micro-judgments, exclusion, or influence over mutual social circles, men perceive scarcity where it may not truly exist. A woman who is perfectly open and capable of attraction might appear elusive or cautious because of subtle social pressures. Men reading these cues often assume low interest or value, reinforcing the pattern of misinterpretation. Recognizing the social currents at play allows you to see beyond superficial behaviors and interpret signals more accurately. Finally, confidence feedback loops are critical. Women's peer interactions directly influence self-perception, which in turn affects energy, communication, and approachability. When a woman feels subtly unsupported or scrutinized by her peers, her natural magnetism may dim. Men pick up on this immediately at a subconscious level, often assuming the hesitation or guardedness is personal rather than socially influenced. By understanding that these dynamics exist, you can approach with clarity, interpret signals accurately, and avoid being misled by energy shaped by social influence. Recognizing how female social dynamics influence perception and behavior gives you a strategic edge. You begin to understand the invisible filters acting on women, how it affects your interactions, and how to navigate these currents without being deceived or misreading signals. Now that you understand how female social dynamics shape perception and behavior, the next step is how to navigate these currents without losing your power or clarity. The first strategy is observe energy, not words. Women often unconsciously filter their behavior based on peer influence, meaning what she says isn't always the full story. Instead of analyzing every word, focus on her energy, presence, and engagement. Is she curious, playful, and relaxed around you? These cues matter far more than what her friends might be influencing or the subtle judgments she may carry from her social network. The second strategy is neutralize external pressures. When interacting with women, don't assume her hesitation or guardedness reflects disinterest. Recognize that her energy may have been shaped by comparisons, subtle social policing, or fear of judgment from peers. By staying calm, confident, and emotionally independent, you create a safe, attractive space where she can express authentic interest without the weight of outside influence. Your energy becomes the anchor she subconsciously gravitates toward. Controlled curiosity is another key tool. Instead of trying to decode every subtle reaction or social signal, lead interactions with curiosity. Ask questions lightly, engage playfully, and let her reveal herself on her own terms. Avoid projecting assumptions based on what her friends may think or subtle social cues. Curiosity creates space for authentic connection and bypasses the social pressure that might otherwise block attraction. Next is confidence through autonomy. Women are drawn to men who are grounded, purposeful, and independent. If you're relying on her energy, approval, or perceived interest to validate your self-worth, you will unconsciously mirror tension or anxiety she may already be carrying from social dynamics. By being emotionally anchored and confident in your own life, you signal stability, self-respect, and high value, which counters any subtle peer-driven social influences. Finally, reinforce her comfort and curiosity. Make interactions feel effortless, playful, and non-judgmental. Women respond to men who navigate social pressures without reacting, who maintain steady energy regardless of external influence, and who allow attraction to grow naturally. Your calm presence becomes a contrast to the subtle tension generated by female social networks, making you instantly magnetic in ways most men never realize. By observing energy, neutralizing external pressures, leading with curiosity, demonstrating autonomy, and reinforcing comfort, you bypass the invisible social forces that can distort attraction. You become a stable, confident presence that naturally draws interest, even in environments influenced by subtle female social dynamics. Finally, confidence feedback loops are critical. Women's peer interactions directly influence self-perception, which in turn affects energy, communication, and approachability. When a woman feels subtly unsupported or scrutinized by her peers, her natural magnetism may dim. Men pick up on this immediately at a subconscious level, often assuming the hesitation or guardedness is personal rather than socially influenced. By understanding that these dynamics exist, you can approach with clarity, interpret signals accurately, and avoid being misled by energy shaped by social influence. Recognizing how female social dynamics influence perception and behavior gives you a strategic edge. You begin to understand the invisible filters acting on women, how it affects your interactions, and how to navigate these currents without being deceived or misreading signals. Understanding female social dynamics is powerful, but mastery comes from internalizing habits and energy patterns that allow you to navigate these currents effortlessly over time. The first long-term principle is emotional independence. Your confidence, self-worth, and energy must remain untouched by outside influence, whether it's her friends, subtle judgments, or social hierarchy. Women are naturally drawn to men whose mood and presence remain stable regardless of external pressures. When your energy is anchored in autonomy, you become immune to social distortions, and attraction becomes effortless. The second principle is purpose-driven energy. Men who live with intention, pursue meaningful goals, and cultivate a rich social life radiate value. This energy doesn't just make you more attractive to women, it buffers you against subtle social influences that may otherwise distort her behavior. When your life is full and purposeful, her social circles lose the power to manipulate your perceived value. Your magnetic presence comes from consistently operating above the invisible social games most men unknowingly play. Another long-term habit is subtle social awareness without over-analysis. Recognize that peer influence, judgment, and social hierarchies exist, but don't obsess over them. Over-analyzing who's influencing whom will create anxiety and reactive behavior. Instead, maintain calm observation, interpret energy cues lightly, and respond from grounded confidence. Women will feel this energy as stability and authenticity, which overrides external social pressures. Consistency in behavior and boundaries is equally critical. Subtle social forces thrive on uncertainty, mixed signals, and reactive behavior. When you maintain consistent standards, energy, and presence, you send a message of unwavering value. Women sense this pattern subconsciously, and your magnetism strengthens with repetition. Over time, your presence becomes the anchor in social environments, making you naturally attractive despite any peer influence. Here's the reality most men never see. Attraction isn't just about looks, charm, or effort. It's about energy, presence, and mastery over invisible social dynamics. Women are constantly influenced by each other. Subtle judgments, comparisons, and peer validation shape behavior long before you even interact. The men who succeed are those who rise above it, who remain anchored, confident, and emotionally independent, regardless of the invisible pressures around them. The ultimate shift is mastering your own energy instead of reacting to hers or her social environment. When you observe without overanalyzing, maintain emotional stability, and operate from purpose, your presence becomes magnetic. Women pick up on this unconsciously. Your energy communicates value, security, and high status, qualities that no subtle social policing can undermine. You stop chasing, stop reacting, and start naturally drawing attention and interest. Consistency is key. This isn't a single moment or tactic, it's a pattern. Anchored presence, emotional regulation, autonomy, curiosity, and playful engagement compound over time, creating an invisible but undeniable force that women gravitate toward. Even when her peers or social circles attempt to shape her behavior, your energy remains a constant, magnetic influence. This is what separates men who are noticed and desired from those who are overlooked. Now here's a personal reflection for you. If your mastery of emotional independence, anchored presence, subtle awareness, playful engagement, and purpose-driven energy multiplied by your consistency equals your attraction influence score, today, what number would you give yourself? Be honest and write it in the comments. This is your mirror to see where you are.